afternoon, everyone. This is Heidi Muyeso-Kunzman, and I want to thank you for joining us today. I just want to point out, if you're not already aware of it, up at the top of your screen, you should see a few icons, one being a participant list if you want to know who else is joining in with us today, and also a chat icon so that you can type in and join us and ask questions throughout. But I see that several of you are on as well by phone or microphone, so please feel free. I haven't muted everybody. I may at some point, and you may want to mute yourself as well just so we don't get feedback. If it gets too much feedback, I'll mute us. But let's get going. Thanks for your patience. So while I'm just giving you a little bit of introductory comments, if you would take a few minutes and type in your name, where you're from, and let us know why you're interested in attending today. Lauren would find that very helpful, and I think each of you would as well. So again, good afternoon. This is Heidi Muyeso-Kunzman, and I'm with the E-Extension Enhancing Rural Community Capacity, Community of Practice. And again, we're really happy to have you here for Lauren Traster's presentation on youth engagement. I just want to tell you a little bit about the ERCC. We are a team of extension professionals from across the United States who conduct research, develop educational resources, and facilitate the community development process to build and strengthen the capacity of people in rural communities who are interested in identifying, pursuing, and/or achieving their goals. We have introduced this webinar series to basically cover some of the topics that folks within the community are either interested in or working on. We plan to offer them the second Tuesday of every other month throughout both semesters, and then once or twice over the summer, and we'll be covering an array of topics. So if you have any suggestions, we'd certainly welcome those, and you will be able to find our upcoming topics listed on our virtual learning center, and I'll type in at some point over the course of the webinar a link to our page on E-Extension. So with that, I just want to turn it over to Lauren. At the end, I'll let you know that we will have a quick evaluation. It's 3 short multiple choice questions, and we'd really appreciate your feedback. And I just also, finally, before I turn it over to Lauren, want to thank her again. We did this once a couple weeks ago and had technical difficulties with our recording, and Lauren very graciously offered to do it again. We had several folks who were disappointed not to be able to join us then, and so we are pleased to be able to have you join us today, and thank you, Lauren, for doing it again. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Heidi. I'm actually excited to do this again, and just want to mention, speaking of technical difficulties, about an hour ago, my office lost internet connection, so I was in a slight panic, but found a Wi-Fi connection so I could be here today. I'd like to just first introduce myself. I am the Teen and Leadership Program Coordinator for the University of Vermont 4-H program, at University of Vermont Extension 4-H program. And I want to just start out by saying I'm a practitioner. I don't do original research. I just look at the research that's been done and apply it to the work that I'm doing. And I've been doing this for a little over 11 years with Extension. And I want to share with you today some of the lessons that I've learned, some of the best practices, you know, what I'm doing out in the field. So with that, I'm just going to jump right into the presentation. And I just want to start by telling you, you know, I spend a lot of my time in my career trying to find ways to engage young people. And I just want to be honest, it's hard. So if you found that it's hard, join the club. It's hard for a lot of reasons. But when you design a program that's based on the principles of youth engagement, you're going to find that it becomes a lot easier. A lot of community groups, and I see that we have some here today, you know, would like to get youth involved in the work that they're doing. And I'm going to assume that by being on today's webinar that this is a goal that you have as well. You know, often organizations will take pride in having youth on their board or involved in their projects, but when you look deeper, you realize it's just 1 or 2 highly motivated, very exceptional youth, or sometimes it's the opposite. It's just a token youth who you've convinced to be the face of youth in your community. And the main question and the main concern really is how to engage all young people in community change. young people can be powerful contributors to society, but too often we adults don't seek or really hear their voices. Youth Voice is not about letting youth help us with our work, with our issues, with our problems. It's really about working together as partners, collaborators, and allies to solve problems together. So today my goal is to help you better understand the importance of developing youth leadership, what the core ingredients of authentic youth engagement are, and discuss ways for you to be successful in working with young people. So please feel free at any time to post questions in the chat, comments you have, ideas, experiences you have, because we really can all learn from each other. And today is an opportunity to have this important dialogue about engaging our youth. Oh, sorry about that. So I want to start off having you reflect on a very common statement we all have seen. Kids should be seen and not heard. And I want to ask you right now in the chat box to reword this. How would you change this statement? And we'll just take a couple of minutes for you to think about this and put your ideas down. And I'm curious how you all would change this statement. And just remember to, when in the chat box, to send it to everyone so we can all see. So kids should be seen and not heard. What do you think? Kids need to be seen and heard. Kids should be seen and encouraged to share. Kids' voices matter. See if we can get a few more of you out there. Those are all great. Youth should have a voice. Yep, so I ask this question a lot, and young people usually come up with the response that I've just posted. Kids should be seen and heard and listened to and respected and taken seriously by everybody. They really know the difference between being heard and really being listened to. They know when they're being respected or disrespected. They know when their ideas are being taken seriously or just kind of brushed off. Yeah, whatever. You know, they really know that. And they want their efforts to feel valued by everybody, not just their peers, by everybody who's working on the project. And they know when they're not being valued. So when we do these things, there are some tangible benefits that are realized. So as we get started today, let's think about why we want to engage youth. What are the benefits to them, to us, to society? And I want to just take a step back and tell you why I engage young people. I do it to develop their leadership and life skills. That's the primary focus that I have, is to develop these skills, because we know that these skills are critical for success in today's world. Employers regularly cite problem solving, teamwork, public speaking, communication, critical thinking, perseverance, and other life skills as key to what they're looking for in their workforce. It's not just a subject matter. It's really these social emotional skills, these life skills that are going to make the 21st century workforce successful. And research also tells us that young leaders demonstrate higher career aspirations, they have increased self-esteem, and improved high school completion rates. So those are all really good benefits. And, you know, you could have a webinar just on the benefits of doing that. I'm just going to brush right over it because it's just one piece that I want to talk about today, is that there are benefits. And we know that there are a lot of real benefits to doing it, but really the larger question remains is, how do we engage youth? Because if we cannot engage them, we can't realize the benefits. And it's really difficult to engage most youth. Let's face it. When they enter middle school or high school, there is a lot of noise to break through. But one of the major barriers that we face, one of the key reasons that it's hard to engage youth, is that from a very young age, youth have a definite idea of what it means and takes to be a leader. And this view of leadership just doesn't resonate with them. They think leadership is just for old white men of great importance. When you ask them, they, in their minds, see George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, the Pope. They just see these old white men. They also see men wearing a business suit standing at a podium. And many young people, the thought of public speaking is an immediate turnoff for them to engage in a program. So when they look and think about leadership, they just don't see images that resonate with them, that doesn't look like them, and they don't take advantage of the opportunities. So I want you to see there's a raise hand button. Hopefully you all see that. I'd like you to raise your hand if you've offered a really amazing program for young people but had low enrollment or no enrollment. How many of you have had that experience, that you have created a fantastic program and nobody showed up, or very few? I see Pam's got her hand up. My hand is up. Ellen. I think we've all at one time may have experienced this. I personally have had to cancel programs. And when I do this, it just makes me step back and really think about, what am I doing? How am I reaching out to young people? Why is what I'm trying to do not resonating? So this is just one of the reasons why youth engagement needs to be intentional. We need to dispel the myths that surround leadership. We need our young people to understand that they have the power over their own lives, that they can be agents of change for themselves, their communities, and beyond. What we really need is young people to look in a mirror and see that they have leadership potential. But sometimes, maybe most of the time, we have to be that mirror for them. We have to tell youth that they have the potential to be a leader. We have to invite them to personally take advantage of opportunities. We have to encourage them. We have to point out the benefits of their participation. We have to do whatever it takes to get them through the door. And let's face it, no two young people are alike, and so what gets one young person through the door probably won't work for the next three. So there's going to be lots of strategies and ways that you have to approach this. But once we do that, once we get them through the door, we need to design our programs and opportunities in such a way that not only we encourage their participation, but that we also maintain their participation. And the Girl Scouts have done a study, and they identified key ingredients that are necessary to engage young people. The first is passion. What are young people passionate about? What matters to them? And how do they want to make an impact? So that's really important. What matters to them? What do they want to do to contribute to an issue? The next is support. What support is provided so that they feel safe? Do we have meetings in spaces that they're comfortable with? Are meetings held at school? Is it held in a location that makes them feel like they're part of something? Or is it held in a stuffy office building where they actually walk in and are afraid just because it's not familiar? Are their friends included? Ultimately, what I look for is there scaffolding in place to guide, support, encourage our young people in the process? So we're going to get back to scaffolding, but I think scaffolding is one of these critical pieces that needs to happen. And the last is friendships. Can they still spend time with their friends? Can they have fun while they are building their skills, while they are developing socially and personally? All of that is really important to have them not only show up on day one, but stay there for the duration. And most important, as I already mentioned, is this passion. It has to be meaningful. The way to engage young people is to connect what they are passionate about to real work. Youth leadership activities and experience should be more than just a rehearsal for something they'll do in the future. The skills that they're going to develop today, they need to be put into practice. And they really know the difference between just a exercise versus what the real work is. And when they're doing the real work, they also need to see the impact of their work. So if they're just a small piece of a project, they need to see how their small piece made a difference in the big picture. Because if they don't see that connection, they're not going to get it, and they're going to tune out in future work. So meaningful work and impact are very important. So what does this look like? How do we engage young people? And I want to share with you Roger Hart's ladder of young people's participation. And I love this visual. I think it's a great way to think about how you currently are engaging young people and ways that you can engage them in the future. And so this model has 8 levels of engagement. And it begins somewhat below actual participation with youth manipulation and tokenism. And think about, that photo op. You just bring 1 or 10 kids in for the photo op where they really had nothing to do with the project. And then it moves up to moderate participation, and it's capped off by more meaningful participation where youth are collaborators and decision makers. And again, go back to what the central question is not what is it we want them to do, but what do they want to do? What has meaning for them, what are they passionate about, and that they see results. So as you move up this ladder, you really have to keep these questions very, very much in the forefront of your mind so that this engagement brings you up higher up the ladder. So simple participation starts around rungs 4 and 5. But really, what you're striving for is getting up to rung 8, because this is where youth and adults really share decision-making power, where they have equal voice, where they work together for common goals, and where youth and adults offer their unique talents and perspectives towards these goals. But I want to say that you're not always going to be at rung 8. That's where you're striving for. And if you're currently down at rung 2, then maybe your goal is to get to rung 4. Take those steps moving up the ladder. And there are going to be times where, rung 7 is where you need to be, because it's mostly young people taking the lead, initiating the action, where you might have an adult advisor helping them out. So you just need to be cognizant where you are so that you can be striving towards that community development model of where rung 8 will get you. So what I want to do at this point is kind of show you what youth engagement can look like, how you can intentionally design a program to fully engage young people. And the way I want to do this is share with you a program I run called Try for the Environment. And TRI stands for Teens Reaching Youth. And the model for the TRI program actually came from Utah 4-H, and then I adapted it for what I wanted to do here in Vermont. And this is a really exciting program, and what I'm going to share with you is the different elements of the program so you can see how I've designed this program for maximum support and benefits to the young people that are involved. So to just take a step back, I just want to tell you a little bit more about the TRI program, and then I'll move on to the components. So the TRI program started last year, and last year I partnered with an organization called the Vermont Energy Education Program, and we set up a program where we trained 12 different TRI teams to actually go out and teach a renewable energy curriculum to young students in grades K through 3. And in 6 months, the 12 TRI teams, and the teams consisted of 2 to 4 students with an adult mentor. In 6 months, they reached over 400 students. And because that program was such a success, the teams that were involved really got a lot out of it. The young students that they taught got a lot out of that. We actually did a second year of TRI, which is this year, and we added a second project area around waste management, because in Vermont we have a new universal recycling law that just went into effect, and schools are going to be impacted by this new law. And this new law basically bans recyclables and all compostable materials from our one remaining landfill that we have. And because schools are going to be mandated to divert recyclables and compostables from the trash, I looked at this as a prime leadership opportunity for students to take the lead in meeting the mandates of this law. So this year, in addition to having 18 teams teaching the renewable energy curriculum, we have 11 teams in their schools that are conducting waste audits, and then are going to be creating action plans to come up with solutions to their waste problems and try to minimize the amount of waste going to the landfill. So it's really exciting. And what I want to go through is how the program was structured. And hopefully what this is going to do is show you some components that if your programs don't already have this, you may want to incorporate into the work that you're doing. So first and foremost, in the TRI program, we set very clear goals. In the TRI Waste program, the overall goal is to decrease the amount of recyclables and compostables going to the landfill. But how the teams reach that goal is up to them. And that's really important. You have very clear goals, but how they reach that goal, the goal needs to be flexible, both in when they do the work, how they do the work, to allow for that meaningful leadership to percolate up. So what is meaningful to them? In the waste audits, some youth are finding that, you know, the composting matters and it matters to them. In others, it's milk cartons. And so we're not going to tell them what their action plan needs to be. We're not going to tell them what their solutions need to be. We just gave them the goal, and we gave them the amount of time that they have. So it is a SMART goal in that it's a specific goal. We're going to measure it. It's attainable. It's relevant to what they're interested in because they actually signed up for this program. And it's time-bound because they need to meet certain benchmarks on a calendar that we've set for them. So one of the first things that we do with the teams is I actually have them sign a contract so that it's very clear what expectations I have of them, and that when they sign on to the program, they're doing it with full knowledge. And it also gives me a tool to go back to them and say, hey, you agreed to this, you agreed to meet these expectations. And the other thing that I did was created a checklist. So that gets to the scaffolding that I was talking about, that within the checklist, it's not just we had a training one day and 6 months later you have to give me, you know, your final project. It's along the way they have to have their waste audit done by a particular date. And then they have to reflect on it and post some photos. And then they have to, you know, have their action plan and budget by a certain date. And then they have so much time to complete their implementation. And then they have to do a second waste audit. So we structure it so that they can be successful. And that's what I get to when I talk about scaffolding, so that even though there's a lot of flexibility and there's a lot of space set up so that they can be as creative as they want, there still is those benchmarks that they need to meet. And it also helps show them how to manage their time and manage a project. So you're beginning to also develop skills. But don't kid yourself. It does get messy. Allowing the young people to be in control of their action plans, it does put them in the center of the project where it's most meaningful to them, but this can get uncomfortable for the adult who may be set in her ways. This is me. I always have to learn how to sit on my hands. You have to basically just say, get out of your way. Let the young people do what you've tasked them to do. And just because it's not how you would do it, it's their learning process. And you need to just provide the support along the way, that again, I go back to that word scaffolding, so that they can be successful. And just because it might look like a hot mess in the process, what you're going to find is they usually get to the end goal. It's really exciting when they get there, and it's really exciting to watch because, again, it might not be the path that you would have taken, but you're also going to find that you're learning from them just as much as they're learning from you. So if you can have that expectation and just know up front that it's going to get messy, then it allows you to just take that deep breath and be okay with it as long as you, again, provide that scaffolding. And I see a question, do you find it challenging for youth practitioners to give us this control? Yes, so one of the hardest things for us as the adult is to relinquish control to the young people. And it actually is a learning process that you're going to have to go through. It's one that I had to go through. I am very much a type A personality. I am very much about my organization. Everything's logical and linear, and I have a very hard time basically being okay with something that I don't understand. But once you learn to trust, and we're actually going to talk about trust a little bit later on, you're going to realize that it's a kind of an exciting ride. And I'll actually share a story with you. I run a teen board that plans a summer conference, and part of that, they have to come up with an icebreaker activity every year. And one year, our theme was Mardi Gras. And for the icebreaker, my team wanted to do Mardi Gras floats, but create them off of tables. And for the life of me, I just didn't see it. I didn't know how it would work. I am not an artistic person. And what I do with the teen board that I work with is I never say no, but I always ask them a series of questions to help them in their decision-making process. And every question I asked them, thinking that they would, say, oh, this isn't going to work, they came back to me with, they answered every question I had for them. So all I could do was trust that they saw this, they got it, and it was their activity to run. And I went into the activity thinking it was going to be a huge failure, because we've had in the past had other failures with the icebreaker, and I got to tell you, it was the coolest activity we have ever done. And if anybody would ever like to see the photographs of the Mardi Gras floats these guys created, it will blow you away. So it's really hard to relinquish control, but once you learn to do it, you're going to find that some great stuff happens. So how do you help adults develop their trust in youth in the process you use? It's basically, I don't know how you teach it, just knowing that you have to give that trust to them, just do it. And again, if you do it in that intentional manner, don't just say, oh yeah, go and do it without asking those questions. Make sure that you've thoughtfully had them really think through what they want to do. And if they can back up what they want to do and they are committed and they're passionate and they see it, there is nothing wrong with letting them do it. Even if they fail, that failure is a learning process. And so I think for you to just be okay with them failing, which again, it kind of goes back to us, we have to be okay with failing, then that's, again, just part of the process. And do others also? Yeah, so if others have suggestions for trust, just put it in the chat. I'm going to actually move on because we are going to talk about trust a little bit further on. So one of the other things that I've done with the programs is I've set up a system to include reflections. So with my TRI programs, I've created closed Facebook groups for them. And one of the reasons they're closed groups, because again, with young people on Facebook, I don't want it to be a public space. I want them to know that it's a private space just for those involved with the program, so that they're really free in sharing their feedback, their ideas, their suggestions, their best practices, things that they're struggling with, things that they're proud of. And by setting up this mechanism for reflection, and I actually give them questions that I want them to reflect on, it's given a wonderful way for the young people to have a voice, not only in sharing for me what I need to report on, but it gives them the opportunity. They really become experts in the program, and so it gives a forum for them to help to better the program. You know, I'll often seek advice from them. Hey, you just did this. What do you think? What could we do differently? It's a great way for them to learn from each other. And then I tend to use that information. I share it out publicly when there's a really good statement, when there's a really good photograph. And so having this opportunity for the young people to have that voice is wonderful. And the thing that I make sure I do is when somebody posts in the Facebook group, I respond almost immediately, because I really want them to know that I'm listening, that somebody is actually paying attention to what they're saying, and you might go back with questions, you might have a dialogue, you might just say, hey, that's a fantastic point. I just find that when young people choose to speak, the more we support them in that, the more that they know somebody actually listens, the better they're going to grow up to be good communicators. And so what I would say to you is, in your program, figure out a way that you can find a system of your own, whether it's Facebook, whether it's journaling, whether it's focus groups, to have that system where you're going to have that opportunity for youth to have a voice. So teamwork is critical, obviously. The thing that I like about the TRI program, it's two organizations that have partnered together. So it's taking an organization that has a mission around a firm concept, like Vermont Energy Education Program. Their mission is to educate around renewable energy. Their main focus is renewable energy. And for the waste program, we partnered with a local solid waste management district, and their mission is obviously solid waste, and now with the new universal recycling law, they have a mandate themselves to go into their schools to make sure the schools are doing you know, what they're being asked to do. But their focus is not youth development. So the first teamwork is with a community group partnering with a youth development organization like 4-H, whose focus is developing life skills and leadership skills in our young people. So by partnering the organizations, you have a stronger program both in the meaningful work, the mission of some, you know, improving some societal goal, and you have that expertise within youth development. Then when you add the young people as your partner in doing the work, you have that ability to expand your reach. As I mentioned with the Renewable Energy Program, in 6 months, our tri-teams reached over 400 K-3 students. The Vermont Energy Education Program would not have been able to reach all of those students with the staff that they have. So that was a win. And this year so far with our waste audits, we're just doing it primarily in one county, and the outreach coordinator for that county has already acknowledged that she would never have been this far, this deep into schools at this point without the partnering and pairing up with the TRI program. So for the community organizations, it's really been a bonus in terms of their reach and their especially with the solid waste district, I never realized they have I guess they have a perception issue in the community. And so if they had gone into the schools on their own, the doors just would have mostly closed on them. But because they were partnered with 4-H, and 4-H is viewed positively by the schools, the doors were opened. And because it was now a student leadership program, a service learning program, the doors opened even more for that. So that teamwork, thinking how you can partner to get the biggest impact in bringing the young people into the work is really important. So some of the common mistakes, so the trust fall, we don't trust, and we've already talked about that. You know, a successful youth adult partnership, like any partnership or relationship, is not created overnight. And these kind of partnerships are especially challenging simply because they're not the traditional way we relate to each other. So some of the common mistakes made by adults when working with youth, the trust is a root cause. We either lack confidence in the ability of youth, or we take too much of a hands-off approach. We trust them too much and we don't help them enough, Or on the opposite, we micromanage. We help them too much and we don't trust them. So I'm curious, we've talked about trust a little bit. What mistakes have you, now that you're sort of thinking about it, have you made? What do you think some of the mistakes that you've been guilty of? And if you want to put something in the chat box, that would be great. So Craig says, yes, and also had some fun with adults in recalling what it was like for them when they were young and how they like to be treated by adults. This seems to really help adults to connect with young people. Yeah, there's actually a great activity you can do that puts you right back into your childhood. And there's also some role playing you can do too, where there's a script where you realize how adults sometimes talk to young people, and you don't even realize it when you're in it, but when you see it, when you're sort of that third person, that fly on the wall, it makes you cringe, and you're like, huh, have I done that? I think we all are guilty at times of speaking down to young people. So some of the things that do come up is, we don't share the power. We don't know how to share the power. Sometimes we give them opportunities, but we don't actually give them any skills. We expect them to do something, but we give them no training. Sometimes we may be in a group of young people, and because we're the adult in the room, we just assume the leadership role instead of stepping back and letting one of the young people step into that leadership role. We tokenize youth. So let's see, trying to rush the process. There's a lack of follow-through on projects started with students. Rhonda, do you mean lack of follow-through by the adults, meaning we don't think we have to finish because they're just students, they won't know the difference?
Yeah, something to that effect.
Yeah, and that's true. Sometimes when we are working with students, we basically say, oh, if something else comes up, that's more important, where the opposite should really should hold is if you're working with students, you should make them the #1 priority and let them know that. I make it a rule whenever I have a young person invite me to either tabletop at their school as part of like a green up day, or they might invite me to, give a workshop. The minute it's an invitation by a young person, I always say yes, even if it's not the best use of my time. And the reason I say yes is because they asked, and I want them to know that they matter. So I have certain rules that I do, and I always make the students #1. So how do we fix these mistakes? Don't make assumptions. That's the first. Just because they're young doesn't mean they don't have skills, doesn't mean they don't have knowledge. Think about technology. Who knows more, you or the young person? In my case, they laugh at me every time I try to do Skype at a meeting because I use Skype so infrequently that I always have to try to figure it out, and the young people are just laughing at me the whole time. But on the flip side, don't make assumptions that they know something either. I had a teen board meeting a couple weeks ago, and we asked someone to be the secretary and take minutes of the meeting, and when the minutes came out from the meeting, they were not minutes the way we would see minutes in an adult meeting. And, I was reminded again, right, young people don't necessarily know how to put out minutes from a meeting. And I have a meeting on Saturday, and we're going to talk about that. So I made an assumption, and I didn't give any training, so that a skill was learned, and I'm going to correct that. One of the other things is when a young person is speaking, don't interrupt. The biggest mistake we can make is if we interrupt them when they're speaking, they may decide to never open their mouth again. So let them talk, let them finish their sentence, and then speak afterwards and let them know that you really heard what they were saying. Acknowledge what they said. Follow up with what they said. I also make a point to really get to know the youth that I'm working with so that when I see them face to face, it's not just all about the business at hand. It might be, hey, how was your basketball game that you were telling me about last time? Or, hey, how was the visit with your grandmother? I remember you said that she was going to visit. Know those little details so that they know that you see them as a human being instead of, and almost, you know, you have to be careful with how friendly you get, but there are ways to be acquaintances with young people and so that there's that deeper relationship that is developed. And I know with the young people that I work with, they all consider me their friend. And I know that if anyone needed to, you know, they would come to me. They all come to me for job recommendations and scholarship recommendations. And, you know, when they're old enough and out of 4-H, they try to friend me on Facebook. So I know that there's that personal relationship that is being established. And I know that also connects them more to the work that we're doing because there is a relationship. And, you know, they want to be part of something. It's that sense of belonging. You know, we talked about trust. So we got to figure out how to trust. And we need to allow for independence, but provide that safety net. So again, let them follow through on an idea that they have. I know when I work with young people, they know that the team board that I work with, they know outright, the only time I will outright say no is if it's a risk management issue or if it's a budgetary issue. You know, if we just can't afford it, you know, let's move on. So no sense talking about it. Or if it's something that risk management would say no to, like there's no sense talking about it, move on. But for the rest, let them try out their ideas. What's the harm? The worst thing that's going to happen, it doesn't work, and it's a lesson learned. So, you know, these are all starting points. But the biggest is sharing power. Learn how to share power. So when you are trying to engage youth, the best thing, obviously, is to ask them directly. If you have some young people in your program, ask them how to engage their peers. Ask them what issues matter to them. Now remember though, they're just one or two youth. They're not going to speak for everyone, but obviously they have their pulse on, you know, what's going on at school or what people their age are into. So they're going to have a better idea. You know, ask them what kinds of things that they are looking to do. But don't forget to also tell them about your work and explain what you do and what your program or project does, and tell them how you might, you know, what you're looking for, and see if anything is a match for getting them involved. You know, where is the common ground? What do you need and what do they want to do? And when you start talking to students, a lot of times, again, they're all looking for different things. Some want school credit. Some are just looking to build their resume. Some are looking to network. They really want to get out in the community and start making those connections. Some are just solely interested in the cause, and they really want to be a part of that. Some are looking to develop their skills, and, you know, some just want to do something, you know, with their friends that they might think is fun and, you know, can give them some ownership on an issue. So every time you're working with young people, just don't forget to have those conversations because you're going to continue to learn from them. So I see Craig has asked a question. Youth are busier than even we are. That is so true. Are you building this work into 4-H club activities or is try a new program? And if so, how have you successfully helped youth make space? So the TRY program is a way to engage young people that are not in 4-H. Some are in 4-H clubs, but this was really an effort to reach out and connect with youth that are not currently part of 4-H work. And so these are young people who, again, they were told of the requirements up front, And so they had to decide if their schedule could accommodate this program. But the way the program was developed was that it gave a lot of time and flexibility for them to accomplish the goals on their timetable. So for example, with the Tri Renewable Energy Program, the teams have to teach a 6-lesson curriculum 2 different times. But they have from pretty much mid-January to August 1st to get that done. And they also have the flexibility in how they do that. Some teams go once a week for 6 weeks for 2 different classrooms. Some do it all in 1 week as part of a vacation camp. Some do it twice a week for 3 weeks. So there is built-in flexibility so that it recognizes that they are busy, and it allows them to figure out how it works into their schedule. And I hope that answered. Okay, thank you. So, so what I want to leave you with, and then I'm going to open it up to some questions, I just want to leave you with this thought, is that when we engage our young people and give them both the opportunity to develop leadership skills and the opportunity to apply those skills, our communities benefit in the long run. All right? So developing skills, applying skills, doing this with our young people benefit our communities in the long run. And if you just hold on to that, it makes the difficulties in the work, you get over those humps, because I know here in Vermont, so much is done on the community level and is done by volunteers and is done by people just stepping up and saying, I'm going to help with this. If we don't have our young people engage in leadership roles now, they are not going to engage in these roles when they're adults. And community survival really needs this. So we have to make sure to take the time and the effort to work with our young people to make sure that our communities and our citizenry stays active and does the work that needs to be done at the community level. So at this point, I just kind of would like to open it up to any questions or comments. You can ask me, we can ask the group. I think it's really important when we all come together to share what we've been doing. We all have our own experiences, our own expertise, our own best practices. So is there anything anybody would like to ask or share at this time?
And I think we're a small enough group that if you are on by a mic or a phone, please feel free to chime in.
I mean, what I would like to just then leave you guys with is just don't ever underestimate the power of youth voice and your ability to create opportunities for youth to be authentically engaged. When it's done intentionally and when it's done for the full benefit of our young people as well as for the full benefit of our community programs, it is so exciting. It is so amazing to watch, and just to be part of that. And I know most of you are doing it. I mean, it's a wonderful thing. So I'm going to just encourage you all to just stay with it. If you have any questions that you think of later on, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to anybody, answer any questions. But I really appreciate you all coming in for episode 2 of this webinar. I'm glad we had very limited technical difficulties today, so I appreciate you all coming. I thank you for your time, and I hope that I helped you all just a little bit.
Thanks, Lauren. That was actually really great.
Thank you.
So this is Heidi again. I am posting an evaluation link right now, and I hope everybody will go to that. if you would, and just answer a couple of questions for us. It'll be quick, and I know Lauren will appreciate it. But thank you very, very much, again, everybody, for coming on. And I can vouch for Lauren, encouraging you to contact her, because after the last time we did that, she was answering questions here or there, too. We will also be posting this, in case you want to share it with others, up on the Enhancing Rural Capacity website. So thank you again, and we can stay on a couple more minutes in case you do have any final questions. Lauren, a big, huge thank you to you again.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad I could get this recorded.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then we'll close out the session. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.